So where did you go from there?
Well, I set out and then in politics, all right, if we're going to change things, let's do it. So I got elected to the Board of Control at the University of Washington. I was chairman of the Finance and Budget Committee. So at the tender age of, I don't remember, 20.
Did you say finance?
Finance and budget. I had control over I think it was a $200,000-$300,000 student activities budget.
Pretty good.
So we would bring bands to campus, speakers to campus, all sorts of stuff. And normally it's just,
Fun.
In this environment, I'm having committee members' lives threatened. One of my guys had his car firebombed. The BS Black Student Union would do what they call mau-mauing in those days. So we'd have a meeting and they'd send 15 great big guys in to sit in the meeting. They'd all stand right behind you,
Yeah.
arms crossed, sunglasses on, looking very intimidating, and if you didn't know better, you'd be intimidated.
Yeah.
So anyway, some of my friends were part of the BSU and stuff. So
Sure.
and so I had a reputation for trying to be even-handed, which is what the job was.
Yeah.
So yeah, we brought Black Panthers to campus to talk. We brought James Kilpatrick, Republican, real Republican, our and all the music and all the stuff of the day. It was fantastic. Kind of the highlight, the fun spot was we decided to host a debate, real live debate, not what passes now, this stupid name calling and
Sure.
stuff, but a real live debate about the war in Vietnam. So the champion for the right was William F. Buckley, the ultimate conservative voice. Didn't get any higher up in the pecking order of conservative authorities. Our champion on the left was local history professor Giovanni Costigan, little white-haired Irishman, right? And we were going to do it in the Hub Ballroom. We figured we'll get a few hundred people to show up. Sells out. Oh, we need a bigger space. Next one sells out. I'm like, what the hell? The now what do they call Alaska Arena, where the dogs play basketball?
Yeah.
Sold 9,000 tickets for this thing. We couldn't believe
If that doesn't give you a pulse on what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. And it was epic. I mean, literally, it was the atmosphere of like a prize fight, And in this corner, weighing in at 185 pounds, the rolling voice of the conservative thought, his intellectual William F. Buckley. And in this corner, the diminutive but powerful Irishman of legendary purport, the little leprechaun of the left, Giovanni Costigan. Hey! And
so if you took this whole crowd, is this a 50-50 split? What's it feel like?
It was a little weighted towards the home team, right? But in those days, conservatives were not these morons that they are today. They actually had some principles, and which they believed in strongly, and you had to admire that, right? And Buckley gets up there and sits on the stage, and he always had this somewhat imperious manner to him, which was, if you looked up arrogant in the dictionary, his picture was always there, because his nose was always just a little bit up in the air. And so Costigan gets up there, makes his opening remarks, and it was clear this was not going to be some he's really debating.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you could see Buckley was a little bit, shit.
He came prepared.
Yeah. So he gets up there, but trying to throw everything off. He goes, well, I can see that if this is what passes for intellectual prowess in this part of the country, why they still refer to you as the provinces.
Oh, jeez.
It's like,
come on.
Oh, shit. Hiss, a giant hiss from the audience, oh, it's on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they went at it for 90 minutes. I mean, it was intense. It was great.
I think that'd be phenomenal. I mean, I could see
was.
that
I
these
just
days.
loved it. I know somebody filmed it because we were, but I have no idea what became of the film. But it was.
In our previous conversation, we talked about your history and then you win that big Army contract. Now I get a little more insight on. You had some background with this when you're talking about the hangover from the war, and that gives me a new perspective on how you were able to communicate with those guys and get that.
Well, yeah, and see, and then so everything was up in the air then. All the social conventions, And this was when the gay pride movement and the women's movement and all of these things, and a serious, and I think in those days, in that moment, mistaken transition was made from civil rights.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody's in favor of civil rights. You can't be opposed to civil rights, whatever. But for Malcolm and the Panthers and some of the others, it wasn't happening fast enough. So they went from civil rights, and then when Martin was killed, it became black power.
Yeah.
And that started scaring the white people. All right? So you saw a fissure begin to develop there that I'm not sure is actually healed.
Well, it's gotten bigger recently.
Yeah. So for me, I'm kind of, this starry-eyed, 19, 20-year-old, like, in part, it's like, wow. On the one hand, what the hell's going on? And on the other hand, what an amazing moment in time,
so much
to be in the middle of it all. And one of another transition point for me, you probably won't remember this, there was a local writer for the Seattle PI by the name of Frank Herbert. He became legendary for writing Dune and a series of science fiction books. And they're now on the third or fourth version of the movie that's just recently released. This one was a good one. And in any case, he did what did he call? He called them an encounter group, which was somewhere between a seminar and I'm not even sure what I would compare it to because I didn't have a lot of comparison. But I decided to go to one of these things, and it was my first immersion in kind of self-awareness, self-discovery, self-exploring, and self-development. The concepts were brand new, not just to me, but to everybody in those days. And so that kind of opened my eyes to a different way of looking at the world. We played war games and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, oh shit, here's a whole different.
Who am I? Where do I stand?
Yeah, exactly. Where am I on all this kind of stuff? And that, then as I said, I started playing rugby, built a whole different kind of community and family there. And you see old pictures of our rugby team. We got our UW jerseys on, but we look more like Pancho Villa's Raiders than the traditional representatives of the University of Washington.
You rise to the kind of the elite of your party in a sense, and then you're also a rugby player. Weren't you the captain?
I was senior, yeah.
So you're always kind of running into that leadership position. You're drawn to that. Is it built in you? Is it something you were born with? Is it your parents? Where'd you get that? Personality? Or you learning this thing?
I don't have a clear, simple answer for you. I definitely wasn't my parents per se. My dad was always kind of clear. Stand up for yourself, do what's right. That doesn't mean it's easy. Yeah. Right. My grandfather on my mother's side was actually my other grandfather died when I was a little kid, so I didn't have much experience of him. But my mother's father, my grandfather, was a big influence in that he'd been a big democratic, progressive labor guy back in the Chicago area, and he was constantly talking to me and writing me and introducing me to some of the thinkers and writers. On the left. My dad wasn't a big intellectual guy, but he had his own value principle, and this is how we run our business. And somebody might be able to do a shady deal and go, but we don't do that. Yeah. Right. And so I'm not sure where it all came from. Yeah. But
we seem to be obviously a natural leader, or at least respond to it, attracted to it. Mm-hmm. Which is obviously where you're at today. Yeah, over the last 30 years, it's a perfect fit.
Right. Yeah, we came to refer to not just me, but the phenomenon. Everybody's like, "Well, you must have a big ego," and I said, "Well, of course I have a big ego. You never get anything done.
How can you not
don't have a big ego? That's not. You make it sound like it's an insult. It's not. Yeah. Right? It's and I'm not saying this about myself, but there is a kind of distorted ego. That you get a bunch of bravado and bullshit and toxic crap. Yeah. Take a look at what's going on in some sectors of our republic, today.
Sure.
Or there's what I refer to as more as a divine ego. Right? Yes, you have to have a big enough belief in yourself to get out in the world and go and do something. Right? Otherwise, you can spend your whole life sitting on the curb watching the parade go by. Yeah. It's just never been my style.
Well, thank God it wasn't your style, because look what you've done. So obviously you've had an interesting background, the time you grew up. I get, it's weird. I get a better sense of you hearing that story than I thought in the past. 'Cause I didn't know that little part. I knew with UW you played rugby. I knew you kind of were fighting battles in the government and that type of thing, but I didn't realize the whole picture. That makes things a lot clearer for me where we're at today. So now that you've told us a little bit about your individual background there, when did you start realizing that you took this self-awareness to a new level, and now you start investigating some other things that change who you are?
Well, it was a combination of self-awareness, and also, as I said, this I'm not even sure what to call it. It was kind of like somewhere between a commitment and an awakening of combination of my grandfathers did, my dad do what's right, et cetera, et cetera. And you watched all this stuff, all these kind of injustices and so forth that have been simmering for long, now suddenly exploding out into public view. You got National Guard shooting down people, and everybody's kind of like, what the hell? And I, in addition to all the stuff we talked about, because of my work as the finance and budget chair, and I had to interact with the university administration, I'd built this identity of kind of being a guy who could get along with everybody.
Sure.
Not a marshmallow, but you could trust me, was basically it.
Yeah.
So I got appointed to be on the board of trustees of the university bookstore. Okay, seemingly no big deal, but in those days, the University of Washington bookstore was the second largest bookstore in the country, outside of the Harvard Coop.
Really?
Yep.
Interesting.
And so fine, a board that was made up of faculty, student, and administrators, and of course management from the store. And I was on the board for a couple of years, and then it was the time in history. So one of the bylaws said that students couldn't be chairman. We said, well, we better fix that. So the students on the board, we went to work, and it was a long process. I mean, we had to get it approved by the Board of Control and the Board of Regents of the University of Washington, right? Yeah. Okay, great. So we get this all done, and I become the first student chairman of the board. That was the good news. The rest of the news is I also graduated.
By the time you got promoted.
Exactly. By the time we got this all done, now I graduated. So my life plan had been, I'm going to do my degree and then go to University of Washington Law School. I'm good. I'm going to be a crusading lawyer. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Well, the first part worked great. I got my degree. I didn't get into the UW Law School because this was the first time when they had quotas for women and minorities.
Okay.
And I got bumped. I could have gone to UPS or Gonzaga or any other schools where I got in, but I realized, okay, now I've got my first real live, big time ethical dilemma. If I do what's best for me, I'm going to resign my position and go to school somewhere and get on with life.
Yeah.
If I do that, I've pretty much poisoned the well for any other student coming behind me, aspiring to be the chairman, because that's the exact reason that they said we couldn't let students, because they're transients. They won't be around long enough. So I'm thinking to myself, how do you say it? Shit.
I do.
Yeah, now what do I do? Well, the answer was, okay, I just can't do something for me that's going to affect forever the prospects for others. So I quickly went and enrolled in the Graduate School of Public Administration. Right? Got a MPA, not an MBA, but an MPA.
What is that?
Masters of Public Administration,
okay.
Which is pretty much the same as an MBA, but it's oriented around government service.
Sure.
And I was a little bit of a wild man in those days, and I lived in an old converted president's car, railroad car out in Bellevue, right? Out in the woods in Bellevue. So you got
was that the old wave new transcendentalist? What do you call that?
No, the story is there's this crazy developer who used to have this big charity auction every year, Poncho, and one year he got drunk and bid on the surprise package, paid $75,000 for something he hadn't even seen. And what he bought was this old railroad car. Now, I'm not talking about some old beat up, dilapidated thing. This was an old, what they call president's car, which was the 1800s equivalent of the corporate Learjet. Right? It had stained glass windows, mahogany, little crystal lights.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool.
It was great. And he had it up on railroad ties over in Bellevue, in the woods in Bellevue, because he's building this big Belfield office park across the street. Right? Well, the park gets built. he moves over there. The thing's kind of sitting empty. And I came across it, made a deal with the guy, because he recognized me as another crazy person, right? So, I went to Eagle Auto, in those days, and bought a shower stall, put it in one of the closets. We found this guy who was tearing down a house, and we just took out the whole kitchen counter, sink and everything, put it in there, and it was great. I lived there for like 3 years when I was in graduate school. It was what I call linear living. 9 feet wide and 75 feet long. It's like living in a bowling lane.
Yeah, it's like the great party house.
Oh, it was great. It was definitely a CDI spot, right? Chicks dig it. And so I'm asleep one Saturday morning, probably hungover, but let's not go there. And phone rings. Mr. Majer? Yeah. This is Professor Gore's secretary. Lucky you. Yeah. Okay.
Get to the point.
Yeah. And professor would like to see you. Now? No. Next Wednesday at 2. Why the hell are you? Well, we heard about you and figured this would be the only time we could probably have some assurance of getting you. It's like, oh, great. Okay, fine. So I go to see this professor, and I'm thinking this is a little embarrassing because I did my undergraduate work in political science. This guy's a poli-sci professor. I never even heard of him. So fine, we go in his office, and he's got me there, and he looks at me and says, "Oh, you're a major. We heard you're one of the hot shots in the graduate school." Yeah, okay, what? He says, "How'd you like to go to Alaska?" What? Are you out of your mind? What are you talking about? And he goes on to explain that under the tenets of the Native Claims Settlement Act, they've got to put together little village corporations and governments to qualify to get the funding that was part of the act to implement it. And I said, okay, well, that's nice. What's that got to do with me? He says, well, we need people who, A, are a little adventuresome. You tick that box. Okay. Yeah. B, have a reputation for being able to get things done. You tick that box. Okay. Understand all the kind of stuff, the intricacies that we're talking about. Right. So yeah, you tick that box. I said, yeah, okay, I got all the boxes ticked, except what makes you think I want to go to Alaska? Just because we're going to pay you $4,000 a month plus all your expenses.
Jeez.
This is in 1970.
That's a lot of money.
73, 74. Yeah.
Wow.
And then I'm like, and when are we leaving?
What's the next flight out?
Yeah. Why didn't you just lead with that?
Yeah.
And then we could I'll go back to say the rest of that again.
That's impressive.
Yeah. Wow. I started listening now. So he put together this team, and there was 4 of us, right? And we got up there and we listened to this guy give us the briefing on the.
You're all in your early 20s.
Yeah. I was the second on the team. The first guy was a PhD from the business school named Harold Culbertson. I'll never forget him. He was a very quiet, soft-spoken. I think he was a Sioux Indian. Yeah. I mean, he was a Native American. I don't remember which tribe. I think it was the Sioux. But he was just very quiet and soft and very funny. Yeah. And so they give us this briefing, and we're just kind of like, oh, shit, it's going to be. Well, we get up there, and they're telling us, well, you got to teach them, basic math and accounting skills and 101. And they fly these people in. We're operated out of this little school that I guess it's now gone, Sheldon Jackson up in Sitka. And they fly these people in from all these villages. And we get, I think there's like 40, 45 of them in this room. And we're all prepared for our 101 level instruction. Holy shit, they want to know about bond financing and we're just sitting there looking at each other going, oh shit. We got hosed here. We've been fed faulty information on what's going on here. So pretty much everything these guys told us was just complete crap. And so we rather quickly had to rally and reshape the program, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it was a big hit. And so I spent the first year being the second year where they wanted it, then I was leading the program, and it was quite an adventure. I mean, we'd go out in a bush plane. We each had a set of little villages that we would take care of, and you just kind of do this circuit around them. And then all the people from all the villages would come in. I think it was twice in a quarter or something. I don't actually remember anymore. And we'd do this work, and it was absolutely amazing. I mean, it's just some of the experiences and cross-cultural stuff and blowing up stereotypes, because I'll tell you one
I bet
story.
there's a lot of
I'll
stuff
tell you
there.
one story. Then we'll,
Just one?
Well, so I had this fascination in those days with wolves, right? So I'd had Siberian Huskies and, the next closest thing to a wolf and blah, 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 blah. So anyway, around this little village, and I asked the guys, I said, hey, you guys have wolves up? They said, well, yeah, come on, it's Alaska. We got wolves everywhere. I said, well, is it possible? I'd love to. It's that time of the year when the pups are out. Can we go up and look around for one? And the guys, oh, well, if you want, yeah, we'll take you up there. Okay, great. So we'll go out the next day. So
I'm picturing snow and ice and
oh, no.
Oh,
This is southeastern Alaska.
Oh, okay.
Not like they don't have snow and ice, but this was like in the spring, summer.
Okay.
It's forest,
Yeah.
right? Lots and lots.
Yeah, beautiful.
Forest. Think of more like Olympic Peninsula.
Yeah.
Okay. So great. So we get up the next day. We're going. These guys. We got a rifle. We got some food. We got a shovel. And I said, okay, I just want to be clear. I'm not going to shoot anything. They said, no. This is probably more for bears. Oh, okay. I feel so much better.
Great.
It's okay. So off we go. We're trudging through the woods and we're going up and over rivers and across logs and up. And then I noticed that the breaks are getting a little more frequent, right? And I'm thinking, these guys can't be tired, come on. So we're walking, finally they're at a dead stop and they're all over there in a huddle. And I come over, yeah, what's up? And the guy kind of looks at me and goes, well, we're lost. And I look at him and I'm like, what? We're lost. And my hand goes, you can't be lost. What do you mean you're lost? You're Indians.
I'm from Seattle.
Yeah,
man.
You're like one with nature. This is what do you mean you're lost? You're supposed to have some intuitive sense of it. You can feel Mother Nature, spirit guide. What happened to all that spirit guide shit? You guys, hey man, we're fishermen. Right? We've never been this far in the woods in our lives. We're just trying to be nice and take care of you. Okay, great.
Now what?
No, I'm using my...
So now it's you leading.
Exactly.
The leadership arises.
Well, this was more out of survival, not so. I'm like, okay, okay, fine, fine, follow me.
Yeah.
So I got us back. We didn't have any wolf encounters, but it was like
you had a great
my cross-cultural experience. What do you mean you're lost? You can't, no.
But the more I hear these stories, Chris, I used to tell your story about, working with the Army, and a little bit was kind of luck, but you had this training all the way through. You had an understanding of things when you went in there. So to me, it's not so lucky anymore. That you actually had a lot of experience and understanding.
Well, yeah, when you go back and recreate it, then you can kind of go, oh, I see how this actually does all hang together. If you just kind of try and get little snapshots, you're like,
wow, this guy's I'm picturing like a decade of time of the crazy stuff in the world happening. You're right in the middle of it. The amount of knowledge and experience you got in such a short a time. And you obviously took it all in and learned some lessons from it. And so is your passion at this time fighting for the little man? Is it
well, yeah, in this case it was
helping other people?
We had a law professor at the UW whose name escapes me right now. And I thought, well, if I'm going to teach about how we implement the Native Claim Settlement Act, maybe I better read the damn thing,
That sounds like a good idea.
Freaking 600 pages. So I'm like, okay, this could take a while. So we hooked up with this professor who specialized in this kind of stuff and was a champion for tribes. Yeah. And I asked him to kind of give me a synopsis, and he explained how the act was essentially designed to fail. And I'm like, what? So we
did
walked
this on purpose?
Well, yeah, they did this on purpose. The whole thing was the basic plot was we give the Native Americans all this land and all this money, but there was a star after all the land. Okay, so I forgot how many millions of acres.
No resources on the land?
No, there's plenty of resources, but you can't really have the land until we can give you a clear title to it. We can't give you title to it till it's been surveyed, and most of Alaska's never been surveyed.
It's going to take forever.
So, okay, but we're going to give you just what in retrospect wasn't much money, but we're going to give you the money, and parenthetically...
That sounds like the proverbial carrot I used to get when I was...
Yeah, it's like, because we know what'll happen is you'll take the money, spend the money, and then you'll be broke, you won't have the land, and we'll say, well, we'll give you some more money, but we'll take the land back. Right? And then, at least in Southeast, this wasn't true everywhere, but in Southeast, the Japanese are watching all this, and they said, well, we know you'll get title to the land someday. They think longer than we do.
Yeah.
So we'll be happy to front some of your expenses. We want timber and fish. And so they made some deals, and so did some of the other regional corporations. And to the varying degrees, they've flourished or not. And anyway, it was quite a, like, let me get this straight. You know, I knew we were pulling crap like this back in the 1800s, but you know, really, we're still doing this shit. We're still trying to screw the natives. Come on, snap out of it, guys.
Same game, different
Same
rules.
game, you know, exactly. Same game, different day.